Every little thing you think that you need, every little thing you think that you need, every little thing that's just feeding your greed. Oh, I bet that you'd be fine without it.
You're listening to the Minimalist Podcast with Joshua Fields Milburn and TK Coleman.
Thank you, Malabama. Hello, everybody. Guess who's here? Ryan Nicodemus is in the studio.
Oh, please continue. Please keep going. Please.
I missed you so much.
I'm back, baby.
Ryan's in town for the Everything Tour. We had a tour stop here in Los Angeles. We still have a few other stops in Fresno and San Diego and San Francisco. If you want to join us, you can grab free tickets while they're still available at theminimalists.com. Ryan, someone at our most recent tour stop, they stopped me before the event. They snuck over and they asked me a question. They said, what do you do after you've simplified? And my answer was simple. It was, you simplify, simplify, simplify. And then you keep simplifying. And that's what we're talking about today. Plus, we're going to answer a bunch of your questions. Coming up on this free public minimal episode, a caller has a question about whether she should get rid of everything or should she slow down while simplifying. And then we've got a lightning round question about the most difficult thing each of us has let go of. That's followed by our Right Here, Right Now segment and a listener tip for you. You can check out the full Maximal edition of episode 441, where we answer 5 times the questions and we dive deep into several simple living segments. That private podcast episode is out right now at patreon.com/theminimalists. Your support keeps our podcast 100% advertisement free because sing along at home, y'all. Advertisements suck. Let's start with our callers. If you have a question or a comment for our show, give us a call, 406-219-7839, or email a voice memo right from your phone to podcast@theminimalists.com. Our first question today is from Rose.
Hi, my name is Rose from Tempe, Arizona. I love you guys. I really do. I did the 30-day challenge and loved it. I'm thinking of doing it again. I'm 72 years old. But why all of a sudden do I feel the need to purge? I mean, I just feel like getting rid of everything. Should I? Should I slow down? Thanks for your help.
So, Rose, when simplifying doesn't work, simplify, simplify, simplify. And that's really the essence of what I want to talk about today. And by the way, I get that from Anthony DeMello. Someone asked him during, I guess, a silent retreat, like, what do you do? Like, what's the key to life and living in the moment, being present? And he wrote down on a piece of paper, awareness. And they're like, I need more than this. Wait, you can't just say awareness. And so they hand him back the paper. He writes down awareness, awareness, awareness.
That's good.
And I think with Rose, we all get to this point where we get fed up with our material possessions, right? And it's like, oh, I just want to get rid of all of this now. There was a woman at the Los Angeles event, Ryan, at the very end, where she said, if everything just went up in smoke, she didn't even know about the spontaneous combustion rule, but she said, if everything just went up in smoke, I'd feel such a relief. And I think that's where a lot of us are. Now, thankfully, you don't have to burn your house down. You don't have to throw all of your possessions out. You don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak. But simplifying isn't a destination. You don't end up getting there. And so it's okay to simplify slowly, to keep simplifying, because there's no there to get to. In fact, when you get there, there'll be a new there or a new horizon right ahead of you.
That's absolutely right. And desire has the right to be spontaneous. You don't have to justify everything you feel like doing, and you don't have to psychoanalyze yourself when you feel like doing something. My rule of life is that in the absence of any morally or logically compelling reason to do otherwise, you're free to do what feels good to you. Yeah, well, does that mean I can just treat people like I want? Well, there are some morally compelling reasons to do otherwise. Well, does that mean I can just eat as much cheesecake as physically possible? There are some logically compelling reasons to do otherwise. But if you feel the spontaneous desire to just purge a bunch of stuff that you don't want, the default isn't, I got to have an argument for that, or I got to understand why that is. The default is you get to do that if that's what feels right for you. Now, if there's some logically or morally compelling reason to say, slow down, there's someone who needs this stuff, or you're throwing out something that doesn't belong to you, or there's a better way to get rid of it than that, then that's all fine. But as you said, Josh, life evolves, life changes. And once you get there, there's a new there. And sometimes that new there takes the form of, hey, the way that I needed to purge when I was 20 and 40 and 50 is very different than the way that I need to purge at 70. This is a new stage of life, and I don't have to live by the rules of a previous stage. I might need a new element of clarity and spaciousness.
Ryan, when we think about simplifying, there are often at least two reasons that people can think of to simplify their lives. And obviously, it often starts with the material possessions. One reason is I'm really overwhelmed by all of these things that I've brought into my life over the last year, decade, many decades of my life. And so I'm overwhelmed. And so my why is I want to be less overwhelmed. I want to be less stressed. I want to be less anxious about all of the excess in my life, about the clutter, about the things that get in the way. The other reason that people simplify is they've been told by someone else that, oh, you should get rid of this. Why are you still holding on to that? And to me, that just isn't a very compelling reason to get rid of anything because someone else thinks you should.
Of course not, man. I mean, who likes to be told what to do? We were just having that conversation before this podcast. Oh, man, it's interesting. The question from Rose and the one posed at the top of this show, they're different questions, but I think there's a same symptom going on, which is Rose is asking, I am simplifying. I have this impulse. I don't know why I'm doing it. And the person at the event was asking, now I'm done simplifying. I've done it. Now what do I do? And the synecdoche there, am I using that word right, Josh?
No, it just means metaphor.
Oh, okay. So the link there.
Uh-huh.
Okay, cool. So the link there is that both of them are either doing things on impulse or doing what they think they should be doing, but neither of them are clear on why they're doing it. And that's not that's not wrong. It's just we see these two different, readers or listeners as, kind of two different situations, but it's really the same thing. So what I'm trying to get at is like for anyone who is either they feel like they're done simplifying or they have the impulse to simplify, getting clear on that why that we always talk about. I mean, these two examples is why that is so helpful and it's so empowering. It's not necessary to do these things, but it does help when you have a clear picture of like, okay, I have this impulse to get rid of things. What am I going to do once I get rid of that? I mean, even getting rid of the ethereal things, getting rid of desire. Great. What are you moving that out of the way for?
Yes. Yeah. And sometimes it doesn't mean that you're going to replace the thing with another thing. Sometimes it's you replacing it with free space. We've all been into a hoarder's home before. At least I know everyone here has been into a hoarder's home. And getting rid of 100,000 items doesn't mean that one wants to replace those 100,000 items with another 100,000 items. You're replacing those things with space or with calm. You're simplifying, not just for the sake of simplifying, you're simplifying to open up the space for a calmer, more peaceful life.
Yeah. And that's the end game, right? That's the end game that's always beginning anew, to be in that space of peace, calm, what we might call fulfillment.
Well, I mean, it's also why we talk about this as a practice. Like that's what gives us fulfillment is like when we have these really empowering practices. It's funny. I was thinking like, what do you do after you get done simplifying? I mean, if simplifying is a practice, it's almost like, what do you get done doing after you pray? Yeah. Or like, why am I praying? Like, is it ever a bad time to just get down and like meditate or pray? Like there's never a bad time to do that. There's never a bad time to simplify. Like if you have an empowering practice, I mean, we can question it. We love to know why, but if it's helping you, then great. If you want to move on to something else, then maybe there's some other questions to ask beyond the simplification piece of it.
And to be clear, to simplify doesn't mean to keep getting rid of things either. Sometimes a simple life requires additional tools and additional accoutrements. It doesn't mean that you can go out and buy a simple life. A simple life cannot be purchased, but we can purchase things that augment or enhance our experience of life.
I like to think of it in terms of like a dance versus thinking of it in terms of a destination. When you're taking a trip and you're like, my goal is to get to Arizona, the way you travel is kind of a means to an end, right? If you can get a nonstop flight, that's probably better than having a 2-stop flight. If it makes more sense to drive or take a train, I mean, you pick the way that's most convenient for you. And the states that you have to fly over or drive through, they're kind of just a means to an end, right? The goal is to get past them. And some things in life are like that. It's a destination. The goal is to just get there and get it over with. But when you're on the dance floor and you're dancing, you're not thinking the goal of this is to take the final step, or the goal of this is for the song to end. You're thinking the goal of this is to simply be in the moment and to enjoy this. And more often than not, when you're fulfilling that goal, the song stops and you're like, oh man, it's over? Because the dance isn't like a destination. And I think simplicity is like a dance. The important part is to be in the dance, enjoy the dance, let the art of dancing teach you, let it gratify you, let it challenge you, let it evolve you, but be in the dance and the rhythms, the tones, the mood. Sometimes that goes up, sometimes it goes down, sometimes it's slow, sometimes it's fast, but enjoy the dance because there is no destination here.
What you're talking about is getting rid of the things that amplify your grief, your sorrow, your anxiety, the chaos in your life. Mm-hmm. And you're making room to dance. You're making room for enjoyment. And this sort of dance of life, you want to experience the joy that is buried underneath all of that clutter. And that's where Rose is. And she got a little taste of it. And she sees that joy. And then it becomes contagious. That's why we started the 30-day minimalism game. Is like, a lot of people don't know where to start. And so it's like, you know what? I don't know where to start. I guess I'll just get rid of one thing today. Anyone can get rid of one thing today and 2 things tomorrow and 3 things the next day, because trying to get rid of everything right now, uncover that joy today might be really difficult, but you can pull 1 puzzle piece away today and 2 puzzle pieces away tomorrow. And then all of a sudden you begin to uncover that pre-existing joy that is already there.
I just love that dancing synecdoche.
Yes.
Nailed it.
Dude, you nailed that
shit.
So Josh real quick, tried to take it away from you, but you took it back.
Here's a grammar lesson for everyone listening to this. A synecdoche is a type of metaphor. It's like if I look at TK's clothes and I'm like, hey man, nice threads. I don't mean literally his threads. Right. Or I look at Ryan's minimalist Lamborghini that he drove here in today. And I'm like, hey man, nice wheels. I don't literally mean the wheels. No. The wheels are a synecdoche for a metaphor.
And this dance is a synecdoche.
For enjoying one's life. The dance of life is indeed a synecdoche.
And it's funny because like I just really want to make jokes right now because the thought I had of the dance, again, it's a beautiful metaphor. I thought to myself, isn't it interesting with dancing or like performing music? It's like, I don't know what it's supposed to look like or what it's supposed to sound like, you know? I just know if it's right or if it's not. And someone could be doing the best rendition of the salsa dance. But if it's like robotic, like people pick up on that. They're like, there's something not right about that, but they're doing it exactly how they're supposed to.
Yeah. Have you ever watched Tom York dance in the King of Limbs video?
I almost had a seizure thinking about it.
Right. And he dances like no one's watching.
Yeah, it's amazing, dude.
And it is actually Malabama. I think the song is called Lotus or Lotus Flower. It's from the King of Limbs album from 2011. And what a joyous time he has in that video. It's just him dancing and gesticulating. And he's moving in a way that there's like, I want to say it's supreme confidence, but like you don't even need confidence when you're just in the moment.
Yeah.
He is truly present.
Yes.
And you could look at him and say, he's dancing crazy. Or you could look at him and say, he's dancing amazing.
What's beautiful about that is it does look crazy at first. But that is what I'm talking about. That isn't even he made that up freestyle.
Yes.
But like the way in which he did it, he was doing it right. And so what I'm trying to say is like with the simplification, it's almost like I hear a lot of people looking for the rules. We all are. But with minimalism or not, you got to be able to freestyle, you know?
Yeah.
It's like, and I was thinking this the other day about how when the gal who lived on the boat was asking the question about like, oh, I love my life. And
Grace.
Yeah, Grace. I'm, it's amazing. I live on a boat. I got my friend. I mean, it was this awesome life, but what do you do when someone comes in and talks to you about minimalism? And I forget what I told her, but afterwards, I was like, oh, that's what I should have said. But now I get to say it. That's what's great about my life. I do get to come back and say it.
Burn your boat, Grace. That's my house.
That's my house.
Hey, one more quick thing about this dance thing.
Shit, man. All right, good.
No.
I'll remember what was that. It's good, dude. Go ahead.
Wait, am I cutting you off?
Yeah, it's all good though.
Oh,
dude.
no. Let
me just wrap this up. So with Grace, what I wanted to say was this, is like we are so caught up in what people think about us. And how do we deal with people who think about us? And actually, I do remember what I told her now is I said, look, when you have someone's opinion on your mind, if you are ignoring their opinion to like show them respect and understanding and love, like you literally don't have to care at all what they think. But I think the better way to say it, the pithy way to say it is like the less we care about how others see us and care more about what we present to the world, that is when other people's opinions will stop mattering to us. That felt like TK right there, man. I was channeling TK right there. That was good. Thank you, TK, for that. I appreciate it.
You killed it, man.
Final words, Takoa?
No, man, that was the final word.
We're all just trying to pretend to be TK.
I know, right?
But let's just say this. I love what Ryan was talking about with respect to getting down to that why. What is your dance? What is the dance that you're trying to uncover here as you simplify? And there are a bunch of different practical ways or mechanical ways you can do that. You can play the 30-day minimalism game. You can download the free calendar at theminimalists.com/game. You can partner with some friends to make it more of a dance, to make it a bit more fun. Also, Rose, I'd love to offer you enrollment to our course, Simplify Everything. And no one can sign up for this right now because it's not available, but it is 5 distinct weeks, 17 video lessons, 45 clutter problem areas, 135 decluttering solutions, 50 minimalism resources, a 30-page workbook. We do this course 2 times a year generally. And so next time we open it, I'd love for you to enroll in that. SimplifyEverything.xyz. If you want to put your email on the email list, we'll notify you next time the course opens. Alabama, before we get back to our callers, what time is it?
You know what time it is. It's time for the lightning round where we answer your questions from Patreon community chats.
Yes, indeed, y'all. We just opened this new feature on Patreon called Patreon Community Chats. And really, for me, this is like what social media was supposed to be. And originally, when we started using social media back in the oddies, whether it was Facebook or MySpace or Twitter or eventually Instagram, it was communicating with people, loved ones, in a dogma-free way, sharing interesting things, getting interesting perspectives, asking questions, answering questions. This is exactly what we're doing with Patreon community chats. And what we're doing with our audience over there, thousands of people, we have been positing a weekly question. Alabama, do you want to read the question of the week this week?
The question is, what's the most difficult thing you've ever let go of?
Now, I want to talk to you guys about the most difficult thing that you've let go of. And we could talk about physical things or other things as well. But during the lightning round, we each have 60 seconds to answer your question with a short, shareable, less than 140-character response. We call them minimal maxims. We put them in the show notes over at theminimalists.com/podcast. So you can copy and share our pithy answers with your friends and family if you'd like. And by the way, we'll email those minimal maxims to you each week if you're on our email newsletter at theminimalists.email. Signing up is free. We'll never send you spam or junk or advertisements. We will send you the show notes to the podcast each week. And every week we'll send you 4 or 5 or 10 minimal maxims inside those show notes. Don't worry, it's not a bunch of separate emails. It's all there in one pithy email for you. TK, actually, Ryan, do you have something pithy for our question of the week?
Yeah. Let me get to it here. Yes. It is this. Letting go is not difficult. Processing loss is. And what I mean by that is I just had this realization in the moment, or I should say when when you sent this question via text, and then in that moment at the event where I was like, it really connected with me, where with this woman who was hoarding and asking for help, it's like I can just really see how there is loss that she's not willing to process. And it's loss of an actual physical item, but then there's something mental going on too. And processing loss is never easy. And I think we get caught up and we delay with things like hoarding. I'm stuck on this or I'm stuck on that because we just want to procrastinate processing loss. And, the only way you get good at processing loss is processing loss. There are healthy ways to do that. And that's a different lightning round question.
TK, what say you?
For me, the hardest boxes to unpack are the ones that other people put you in. One of those boxes for me is the box of being in the know and having something to say about the things everyone is talking about. And that's my recent giving up of social media. Not permanent decision, but for the rest of the year. And that's really hard. And you might think it's hard because of conversations about religion or politics, things that are important to me. But it's actually hard about a lot of seemingly superficial things. The NBA playoffs are getting ready to start. And the outlet with which I'm most familiar for expressing my opinions and predictions, that's taken away from me. There's a lot of interesting gossip going on about things happening in the entertainment industry. Not only do I not get to weigh in, but I also don't know. And when I'm talking with my friends about it, they are teaching me and I'm listening and I'm not offering any insight. And that's really hard because sometimes I question myself. I feel insecure about it, but it's good for me.
Yeah. So I love what both of you are saying here. You're both touching on two different aspects of this question. And for me, at first I thought about when I posited this question with our Patreon community, and we've had hundreds of people respond to this. It's been great. I'll have Malabama here read a few of their responses in a moment, and we can have a brief conversation about it. But Ryan, when you're talking about processing loss, quite often we let go of a thing, but then we hold on to what that thing meant to us. Oh, it was sentimental, and we haven't processed the loss of the thing. It's possible to get rid of all of your things and still be miserable because you're still attached to the idea of the things. And then what TK is talking about here is identity clutter. The people put you in a box quite often, right? And then we put ourselves in that box. We keep ourselves in that box to try to appease the other people. Here's the type of person I am. So here's my pithy answer. The peace of letting go eclipses the pain of clinging. Pain is an interesting thing, and I've experienced a lot over the last 5.5 years with this terrible autoimmune disease. And so physical pain is one thing. But you know what's weird about physical pain? You don't remember it longer than about 10 minutes if it dissipates. I had some pain in my right knee yesterday. I don't think about it at all right now unless I bring it back up. I'm not thinking like, oh, there's no pain in my knee now. As soon as the pain goes away, it dissipates. And so the peace of letting go, it stays with you though. And so I have a few examples here of things that were really difficult for me to let go of. Social media, not for myself, but for the minimalists, pausing that social media because I realized some of my identity. Other people had put me in that box of social media content creator. It's not even a word I would use, but they put me in that box. They put us in that box. The video version of this podcast. It's been amazing. All the comments on Patreon, quite literally 99% of them have been, oh, wow, I'm so glad you got rid of the video because I can focus more on the words you're saying now. This is an unintended consequence. I did not plan on that at all. Now, of course, 10% of our audience was watching the video version of the podcast on YouTube or Patreon, but the vast majority of people actually prefer to listen to the words that we're speaking. But then there are other things that were part of my identity that were hard to get rid of. My career from the corporate world. Ryan, I know you struggled with that as well. And then TK, recently, you had to let go of your working for fee. And that was part of your identity. Even if you didn't mean for it to be, quite often we adorn ourselves with these titles and these labels. The most difficult thing for me to let go of, though, has been anger and resentment. Wishing things were a particular way or letting go of the way things were sometimes forms resentment. We pick up resentment without even knowing it. Little specks of resentment until we don't realize we put a grain of resentment in our backpack over and over and over. And now I've got a whole beach of resentment. We talked about that quite a bit on episode 400 as well. There's another thing. I was trying to think of a physical thing that was difficult for me to let go of. When we moved to LA from Missoula, Ryan, I had a basketball. And part of my identity was like, oh, I like playing basketball. I'm going to be a basketball player still. And
Millie, he shoots hoops.
And I got rid of the bat because I only played a few times when we were in Missoula and I was trash now. And so I'm like, I don't really play anymore. I'm holding on to this because I haven't processed the loss yet.
Yeah.
And so I let go of the basketball. I also let go of the identity of I am a basketball player. I'm curious, is there one item that either one of you that comes to mind that was difficult for you to let go of because maybe it was a piece of your identity?
Oh man. I'm gonna go with the deep thought on this, Millie. So let's talk about identity for a second. When I have truly been able to let go of my identity, which I haven't completely, 100% of the time, but there are moments. But when I do, it frees me up to really pick up other things. I mean, even the structure we were talking about before this. I had no structure before, or very, very little, and now, let's say I'm 50% better, whatever the percentage is, that's great. But I got there because I'm like, hey, Nicodemus, you cannot be the dude who does whatever the hell he wants all the time. Like, you have to have some structure. And that's the identity piece. Is like, you know what, dude, like there are things you want to do, but that is just a piece of it. Like the identity truly, I hope this makes sense. When like you can really let go of identity, for me, it's very scary, especially just with the Jehovah's Witness background, because I've kind of had to do that with spirituality in a way. And maybe that is what has primed me to be, one of the minimalists and like gave me some good training on letting go of things. But it's almost like with identity, when I can 100% let go of it, I'm worried that, if I come back, I'm not going to be the person I am. And what I'll tell you is 100% of the time, anytime I've been able to like truly get there, it's as much as I'm talking about it right now, it's not easy and I don't get there often. But when I do, I come back with the pieces I want to keep. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
And so quite often we cling to a lot of those material things because they are part of our identity, whether it's a basketball or it is maybe a suit that you had for a long time because it was the suit that you always wore to go to the Kingdom Hall when you were a Jehovah's Witness. And so there are these things we hold on to because we think it says something about who we are, but it's just, there's no true meaning in that other than the meaning we give to it. What about you, TK? Is there something that stands out?
Oh, absolutely. Books, man. I love books. You will never see me talk about books without smiling. I ain't got a problem with any books. You know what I mean? I just love books. And did I say I love books? And people comment sometimes on the amount of books I own when they see me like in a video call or Zoom call or something where I'm in front of my bookshelf.
Well, real quick, he does these things called Thursday Conversations on Patreon. And his first interview, he's just interviewing an interesting person for 10 to 20 minutes. Yeah. Someone he finds to be interesting. So it could be a celebrity, or the first episode was with his wife. And she was in his office with all the books in the background. And the interesting thing that she said was, Michelle is her name. And Michelle was like, I feel like TK could just be happy if we just had a house full of books and just a few cushions. And then she said, but the cushions would probably be made of books too.
That's very funny.
Yeah, so I have a lot of books, but the amount of books I gave up at my last move was probably about 5 times the amount that I have now.
That's crazy.
I mean, a ton. And that wasn't my only move. I would say when I moved from college back home, the amount of books I gave up then was probably about 5 times that. I mean, a ton. If I kept every book that I've had in my lifetime, like I'd easily fill a library. And part of what was difficult about giving that up was I also had to give up certain stories, like what I'm going to learn and how awesome my life is going to be when I read that book and take in the insights that it offers me, or how cool it's going to be at some point later in life when I go back to a book I read many years ago and I read it and the words and stories hit me differently because I'm such a different person with different experiences. And so I have all of these stories that bind me together with these different books. And by giving up those books, I had to give up those stories and in some cases make decisions that I'm just not going to come back to that, or I'm going to let go of that. Or even though that may always be an interest, I'm choosing not to become an expert on that because of different priorities. And that was incredibly hard. Yeah.
I have a friend who's moving and she's trying to get rid of a bunch of her books. She said she's going to play Project 333. That's Courtney Carver's clothing or wardrobe, minimalist wardrobe challenge. But she's playing that with her books, like boxing up all the books, kind of like a packing party for the books, and then just taking out the 33. Now, for me, my boundaries for books is I have one small bookshelf in my office. And so I was just doing this yesterday. I got a couple new books, and so I had to take a couple old books off the shelf. And I'm like, hey, Bex, my wife, do you want to donate any books while I'm doing this as well? And she grabbed a few as well. I walk them down to the little free library in our neighborhood, those little free little libraries that you could put books in, you could take books from. And that boundary really helps me. But all of our boundaries can be different. You can have an entire library and that's your boundary, but even a library can't have an infinite number of books. Now, Alabama, before we check in with the Patreon community chat and some of their answers, do you have anything that stands out to you? Anything that you've let go of that was part of your identity? You just moved recently.
I did. It's funny. It's two things that were major parts of my identity that come to mind. The first one was when I moved out to Los Angeles, I had to give up my bass guitar. I was a bass guitar player for 8 years and I loved it. And it was a huge part of my identity. And I put it down to focus on other artistic vehicles and then picked it back up when I got back into music retail. And that was suddenly back in a part of me again, but I wasn't playing it. And it made me sad to see it collect dust. And I just sat there feeling guilty, but seeing all the potential in it, like I could. And I ended up letting it go. I gave it to my brother who plays it every single day. He really enjoys that bass. And it makes me so happy to know that somebody else is loving that experience in ways that I no longer could. When I just moved recently, I let go of another kind of prized possession. It was my Nintendo 64 that I've had since 1998. And I played it every single summer until it started to collect dust. And I realized that my time with that had come to an end. So I gave it to a friend who really, really enjoys it and gives it the time and attention that I think it kind of deserved. And it felt really hard to let go of those things because those were so integral to who I saw myself as a musician, as a gamer, as an artist. And being able to let go of that and allow myself space to explore other interests, that was really powerful. It was very freeing.
That's awesome.
What I love about this is you're not demonizing those things. I'm not saying the bass guitar is now bad or the gaming is bad. It's that that's not who I am anymore. When I teach a writing class, I often tell students that I'm much more interested in the verb than I am the noun, in the sense that I'm not a writer. I enjoy writing. That's so much more important. The writing is more important than the writer. Anyone can just say, I'm a writer. Well, what makes you a writer? You write text messages? Okay, that's fine. I guess you're a writer, technically. But what does that even mean? That's just an identity that we pick up. But the verb of writing or of playing video games or of playing the bass guitar, that's the dance. That's the enjoying the experience. Bama, can you read a few of the comments from, there were hundreds of them, so we can't possibly read all of them. But what were some of your favorites from the Patreon community chat when we asked that question? What's the most difficult thing you've ever let go of?
You always expect it to start with the physical items, but a lot of it were things that were not really things. Some of the things that I saw were friendship, letting go of excessive empathy, anger, which I guess also means identifying as a victim, the life I thought I'd have, the value system instilled in me by my parents in favor of my own set of values, the need to have everything tightly under control. And then you look at sentimental items, and there was a lot of really powerful stuff. I teared up reading a lot of these. Someone had their purse stolen that had a keepsake box in it, and they were way more heartbroken over the tiny memorabilia in their keepsake box than anything else, their wallet, their keys, anything else that would be in there. Someone else had experienced a breakup while they were living abroad, and they wanted one item. It was a KitchenAid mixer. And when they moved back to their home country, their partner refused to pay for the shipping to send it to them. Now they can afford it, but they never bothered to replace it. A lot of being forced to let go of things, and people are finding some freedom in not needing to replace those things. Also, identities. People letting go of careers. That was just incredible stuff. 10 years, 25 years of being in an industry and in a specific career, and recognizing that that's not their entire identity, and they are allowed to move on to other things.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So many of these things, a lot of them, like resentment or anger that you brought up, Mal, they require like a pretty big leap of faith sometimes.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is I was at a friend's house yesterday. I forget what book she showed me, but I flip it open and there's a sentence that says, peace does not exist without understanding. And all of these people, the leap of faith is sometimes to let go of the resentment. We don't understand. Like we want to figure it out. And we call into the minimalists and we ask them questions so we can understand why we're at where we're at so we can move forward. But the interesting thing is like if we seek understanding, then we are not seeking peace in a way. So the leap of faith with anger is like, oh, I don't need to understand. I just know that this probably is going to be okay if I start to let it go. And I just want to highlight some of those brave patrons that like took that leap of faith on some of those things. That's awesome.
Shout out to Amanda and Colleen and Jonathan and Becky and Jasmine, Anastasia. These are all the comments that Malabama. I just want to give credit to these people real quick. Colleen, again, Sean, Teresa, Joni, Anto, Kimberly, Nastasia, Alexis, Amanda. I love what CC said here. She said, I buried a box of baby clothes for my child who died as an infant. Talk about something that is difficult to let go of. She said, I couldn't bring myself to donate them, but for me, it helped me rid myself of a very sad memory so that I could move on. And that is the point. Simplifying so that we can move on. Letting go so that we can move on. And through this whole little dance that we've been doing here with this difficult question, what's the most difficult thing you've ever let go of? What I've learned from all of these different patrons is simplifying divides your inputs and multiplies your focus. Quite often we have all of these discrete bits of input here and interruptions everywhere, but simplifying one's life, whether it's the possessions or relationships or calendar or career or finances or any other area of simplification, you're dividing the number of inputs so that you can multiply your focus. You can focus on that dance of life. All right, y'all, we're just getting started. We've got a plentitude of callers to talk to on the private podcast. But first, real quick for right here, right now, here's one thing that's going on in the life of the minimalist. Would you like to have a Zoom call with the minimalists? Well, guess what? You can. Nicodemus will be there. TK's there. Malabama is there. In fact, we do them every first Friday of each month. It's called the Friday Afternoon Minimalist Zoom. And you can join us this Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern on Patreon. One of my favorite things that we do is sort of bridges the podcast with our live events. You can turn on your camera, you can ask us questions, you can interact with us, or if you're a bit shy, like Nicodemus.
Yeah. You know me.
He's so shy. Now, you can just turn off your camera. You can turn off your microphone. You can be a fly on the wall. And if you feel compelled, turn it on, interact with us. We'd love to see you there. Patreon.com/The Minimalists. Malabama, what else you got for us?
Here's a minimalist insight from one of our listeners.
Hi to everyone at The Minimalists. I'm Zeta from Chattanooga, Tennessee. And I just wanted to say that your decision to quit social media may be helping other people do the same. I just realized that I now have one less good reason to log on to my accounts because you guys aren't there. It's been liberating, and I don't miss it because it was mostly me being bombarded with a bunch of unwanted content while seeking out the things that I find value in. So thank you for helping me simplify my avenues to access what really matters to me. I love your show, and I really appreciate what you do. Thanks so much.
Zeta, thank you for that perspicacious comment. For any other listener who has a comment about this episode or any other episode. If you have a tip or an insight, leave a comment on Patreon or YouTube, or better yet, you can send us a voice memo at podcast@theminimalists.com so we can feature your voice on the show. All right, that's the first 25 or 30% of episode 441. We'll see you on Patreon for the full Maximal edition, which includes answers to a bunch more questions. Questions like, how do I let go of the feeling of not belonging to a certain group? Can I enjoy shopping and still be a minimalist? Is it possible to let go of the guilt I feel after getting rid of my child's possessions? Plus a million more questions and simple living segments on the Minimalist private podcast. We also have an outstanding home tour from one of our listeners this week on Patreon. Visit patreon.com/theminimalist or click the link down in the description to subscribe and get your personal link so that our weekly Maximal episodes play in your favorite podcast app. You also gain access to all of our podcast archives all the way back to episode 001. By the way, Patreon is now offering free trials, so if you'd like to test drive our private podcast, you can join for 7 days for free. And you can also check out Ryan Nicodemus, his monthly mentoring message, ryannicodemus.com. He'll send you an email to all of his friends over there on the email list. That is our minimal episode for today. If you leave here with just one message, let it be this: love people and use things, because the opposite never works. Thanks for listening, y'all.
We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Bye, y'all.
Every little thing you think that you need, every little thing you think that you need, every little thing that's just feeding your greed. Oh, I bet that you'd be fine without it.